Hey,
Hello?
we're good. We're on air. Can you hear me? The heck, dude? Hello? Yo, you're like chopping up.
You froze.
And you froze too. You're chopping up pretty hard.
Oh, you came back.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, we're going to try to do this. We're on the air. We're live. I'm going to have to crop out all this other bullshit, but I can hear you and you can hear me. And I think that is success. So I think we'll begin now as soon as I introduce. And then if it might chop up a little bit. It might freeze. Looks like it kind of – remember we had this issue last time where it randomly goes to you and then to me?
Yeah, it flips back and forth.
But whatever, we're working with it still. There's nothing I can do to. I wish we could do side by side, but I don't think it's. I don't think it's doable. Yeah, I don't think it's doable to do it side by side.
If we work out, we get on Google and we do some Reddits, we'll probably figure out a way to fix it. But for right now,
all right. So let's go with now. So, all right. So I'll introduce. So welcome to the Hirak and David show. We had a hiatus for a little bit because we were so busy and being inundated with all the election chaos that we simply didn't know how to express our feelings properly. But we are back, and with 2 days away from Doomsday, we just wanted to come to you guys today and share some of our thoughts and give us provide our opinions on some things that are going on today. So Hirak and I will be discussing a few things in this fairly abridged podcast. First and foremost, we will be discussing the state of the state, as in what is happening currently. Where are we today? How did we get here? And we'll follow that up with Hirak's masterful predictions for how the election might turn out, and then we'll finish it off with a discussion of some of the ballot initiatives that are being pursued in many of the states, or some of the states at least. So without further ado, Hirak, why don't you start us off with overall impressions, coming into Tuesday. What are the key things that you've been focusing on right now?
I think one of the main things that's really shaking up this race is kind of, Comey's sort of insinuating that he's reopening the investigation into the emails. Of course, this email saga has been dragging on for quite some time now. And of course, every election we have these, what we call October surprises. So things that people didn't expect kind of come up. And so I think that's one of the October surprises that's really shaken up this race to the point where, Clinton had to come out, in Michigan the other day, which is a little surprising. She's been out there. Trump is dealing with sort of this continued issue with Latinos, and sort of his rhetoric early in the race has defined sort of the way that Latinos are voting in this election. And they've been voting in large numbers, as I will talk about later in the podcast. They've been voting in very large numbers in the early voting stages in states that do allow early voting. So that's definitely really changing the dynamics of this campaign.
I think it's pretty interesting that you're seeing that Republicans, from what I've read, are actually coming out in greater numbers for earlier voting. Overall, isn't that what's happening? I mean, aren't they more galvanized around a leader like that? Which, by the way, I mean, and that's something we're going to have to discuss after the election, is how do you reconcile the fact that you've got all these people coming out there and expressing support for him, and then at the end of the day, you go through all these Facebook posts and you go through all these other rants that are online. And I mean, for them, it's just a matter of draining the swamp, you know what I mean? And the fact that Hillary's not trustworthy, and the fact that, as who was pointing out this morning, Newt Gingrich was pointing out that no matter whether Trump or Clinton wins, the battle does not end November 8th. It's going to either of those two are going to be hounded, and both parties, depending upon who wins, are going to be attempting to impeach the other, throwing whatever at them as possible. And I think it's pretty sad that it's come down to the fact that there is no reconciliation that I think we can see in the near future, even after November 8th. It's pretty sad.
I mean, I see that, as being an issue. I kind of wanted to push back here on something you said earlier. If you look at like Florida and sort of like, they've been saying, like Republicans are coming out to vote early, and that's great. But part of the concern has been actually, amongst the Republicans, I think they should be concerned is that actually these are the people that already would have voted on election day and have in the past, but they're actually just voting early this year. So like there's been more of an emphasis on, hey, let's get these people to vote early as opposed to later. So really, I don't think that they're actually gaining voters. They're just voting earlier than normal. Now, if you look at the Democrats on the other side, what's been happening is if you look at Latinos, like first-time voters or people that didn't vote in 2012. So actually, it looks to me like Clinton is in a very strong position both in Nevada and Florida at this time.
Kind of getting back. So good for her, to be honest. I mean, that's what I've been seeing.
Well, Florida looks pretty good for her right now. I mean, look at that shocking poll that suggested that something like 28% of Republicans are actually voting for Clinton this year in the early votes.
Yeah, but all the polls that they've conducted are pretty. I mean, they're head to head, they're neck to neck. It's pretty much.
Who knows if that's right or wrong? I have no idea. But even to have a poll out that's saying something like that should be a huge red flag for the Trump campaign.
I think Florida and Ohio are going to go to Trump. I mean, that's what they've been saying. It seems like it's pretty.
You said Florida?
Florida and Ohio look like they're going to Trump. At least that's what they're saying, right? So it comes down to. I mean, it doesn't matter, right? Because as long as the only way that Trump can win is if he wins every single battleground state, right? Assuming that Clinton takes all the leading Democrat and strong Democrat states, the only way that he can win is if he wins every battleground state. So
I'm pretty sure he needs Nevada, right? I mean, Nevada is pretty much. I mean, it's a Clinton state already. I mean, it's set for Clinton.
I think
guaranteed.
I think Clinton wins if she gets Nevada and Michigan, I believe.
No, it's not if. She wins Nevada already. She already
won Nevada, so let's say that she also wins Michigan. I mean, I think it's mathematically very difficult for Trump to pull out a win, right? But I think what's more important, though, is, and that's something we want to talk about a little bit now, is what are the states that Trump's campaign needs to be a little bit more concerned about, in terms of something that they historically have had perhaps a larger margin of victory in Romney and McCain, and then what are some of the states that Clinton needs to be worried about now going into this?
Okay, so let's take a look at the map right now. Let me start. Can we start out west? I'm going to start out west, and I'll move east slowly. Okay. So let's start off with Utah. Are you serious? Are you kidding me? I mean, Utah is actually it's still a toss-up state at this time. I mean, they say lean Republican. I say it's toss-up. We have this guy, Evan McMillan.
I mean, McMillan's numbers are not as good as Trump's from what I've seen. So
I mean, McMillan's numbers are not going to be as high as what they're saying. I mean, it's 20%. I don't buy it. I mean, it'll be maximum 10%. I mean, that's just the way it is. On election day, people don't really vote in strong numbers.
McMillan, I mean, he's done. Trump, he wins.
Trump probably wins Utah, but the fact that he even has to compete in Utah or even has to think about it is a real problem. Let's move on to Arizona. That's a lot more interesting. I mean, Latinos have been coming out in big numbers early in the early voting stages to vote for Clinton. So I really do think that is still a purely toss-up state. Do I think Trump still wins it? Yes. I think Trump still takes Arizona, but not by very much. it then forces him to compete in Arizona. So he's now having to put all these like more financial resources and ads into that at the end of the day, and that's really a thing. That's actually going to cost cost him time he could be spending in other states. Colorado, that's a Clinton state, so we don't even talk about it. Let's see. Let's see. Let's look at
Iowa's
Trump.
Iowa is Trump this year, even though in the past it was Obama.
Unfortunately, it's a lot of it is based off of race. Honestly, I mean, the state is it's very white, and white voters this year are turning out for Trump. So that's the reason why he's going to do extremely well in Iowa. I think he's up by 7 in the latest poll. So I think that's pretty much Trump. I can't really see how Clinton is going to be able to make up enough ground to win Iowa. So I think you can give that one to Trump. A state that's really interesting to me is Wisconsin. It's fairly white. I mean, it's a fairly white state. So I think that could be something that Trump should focus on picking off Wisconsin if he can.
That's interesting because you have Paul Ryan, right, who is definitely not.
I think Michigan, as far as I understand, is a little bit more African American. So I mean, I'm pretty sure if Clinton can get some of that vote, I think she still wins Michigan just because of that.
Yeah, I mean, as Trump says, if they don't all kill each other on the streets in the hoods of Michigan, then yeah, I think Clinton will take that.
I mean, then look at. I want to kind of take a look at Ohio. That's an interesting one. I think that's. I mean,
it'll be one of the few elections where Ohio probably will go to the losing candidate, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's very much possible. I think Clinton takes it by 1.
Oh, come on, dude. Yeah, so that's your liberal sense talking. But, nobody's predicted. Nobody's saying that Ohio is. I mean, I haven't seen a single. I haven't seen Ohio as toss-up. I mean, I really have not seen Ohio as toss-up. From what I've read, it's going to be Trump. It's going to be by a small margin, but it's going to be Trump.
I think that's fair. I think that's very much fair. Pennsylvania. Let's look at Pennsylvania. I mean, this is your state. I think you know some things about it. I think this one definitely goes to Clinton. What do you think? I mean, it seems very likely. I mean, she's been up by like 5 to 6 all year, and now you're saying that Trump is going to come back and win. I mean, the last time a Republican won, as far as I know, it was like 88. So, yeah.
They're still dumb enough to elect people like Rick Santorum, so you never know. But yeah, the majority, right, of the pollsters and the pundits are saying
they kick Santorum out the door pretty quick. So, I mean, I don't think that. I think the voters of Pennsylvania will kind of know a con man when they see him, and I think they're going to definitely,
I'm hopeful.
Not only kick Trump out of there, but they're also going to kick out this guy named Pat Toomey out of there too.
Yeah.
In the election on election day. So let's take a look now at. There's a couple interesting races I want to take a look at. One is Maine's congressional district number 2. That actually might go for Trump this year. It's a rural congressional district, and remember, and then in Maine, what they do is they apportion it based off of congressional districts. So that actually might go to Trump this year. So Trump may actually pick off a vote there in Maine. May not matter, but in a 269 election or something that's really close, that one vote could make the difference.
Yeah.
Let's take a look at New Hampshire. I think that's a tough one, right? I mean,
I've heard that it goes to Clinton. And it's also partly due to the fact that their incumbent.
I think it's I think it's really
also not doing very well in the polls.
Yeah, it's been struggling. I really do think that. I think that it's a turnout thing. I think Clinton has enough resources to be able to go out there and get a lot of people to volunteer and sort of organize in an organized way to turn out the vote. So I really do think that that's still going to go for Clinton, but man, it's going to be close.
They need to stop beating around the bush. They need to stop. First of all, I think that she needs to go out there, and I think the one thing that the Clinton campaign failed to do is the one thing that I think that they need to understand is they really were not. I think the way that they responded to the WikiLeaks emails, in my opinion, was not necessarily the most convincing strategy. I think certainly they were going to always blame it on the Russians, but they really needed to find a better way to handle the fact that there's all this stuff coming out right now. A lot of it was against Bernie Sanders, was against Bernie Sanders supporters. And I think it just, the fact that we're having this discussion right now and where we're trying to predict where it goes, it shouldn't be like this. I mean, if Clinton didn't have all this baggage around her, she would have won in a landslide. And that's the problem.
Clinton definitely owed Bernie Sanders a major apology for, the way that they conducted themselves during the campaign, and she just never wanted to apologize for this behavior.
And Donna Brazile
that would have really helped.
Getting the debate questions, which is, I mean that's also pretty deplorable.
I think a lot of it. I mean, I hate to say it, David, but I think a lot of it's just kind of this overall paranoia from the DNC and the Clinton campaign. I think the paranoia is kind of what led to a lot of these problems. I mean, she should have known. I think she was, deeply concerned that she actually was going to lose to this guy that came out of nowhere to compete for the nomination. I think that's been the whole problem with the process, right? Was it did feel like in a lot of ways like, hey, Hillary Clinton's going to get this no matter what, and we're going to do whatever it takes to make sure that happens. And people don't like that. People like it where it's, where it is up in the air. And I think that's really would have been better for us to have more Democratic candidates. I think had we had more Democratic candidates running this year, I really do think that, I don't think Clinton would have any problems she's having right now.
Agreed. All right. So final call. Before we jump into the ballot initiatives, final call. What is the electoral results coming out of Tuesday at 3 a.m. when everything's been counted and when Trump has already filed all his lawsuits after he loses? Maybe, hopefully. What is the final count? What are you seeing? What's the number?
You may give you a number?
Yeah.
Ooh.
You have one?
Yeah, I want to say because I was going to go with 323, but I think I'm going to go with probably at least, I would say over, I'm going to go bold here. I'm going to say over 330.
Wow. And how much does Trump get? He gets what, like 230, something like that?
Well, you do the math. I mean, he's going to get at least, in that case, it's 535. So he's going to get at least about 205 there. Yeah, I'd give about 205.
Well, okay, we're going to hold you to that. You're buying me a beer when you come up to Boston if that doesn't hold true. Or at least if she doesn't get over 300, you're buying me a beer. And then, of course, if Trump wins, we're just going to pack our bags to go to Costa Rica.
Final thing I'll say, Nate Silver does have his projections right now. Yeah. As of Nate Silver's projections, I think Clinton right about 290. So
okay, that's
about what that right now. So there you go.
Yeah, although they are saying the popular vote's going to be pretty close, very close. Actually, could be certainly
by
just as close. Could be
3 to 4.
What's that?
I said right now, as of latest polls, Clinton leads by around 3.
Yeah, but that's often within the margin of error, and it's one of those things.
It is, but I really do think that it's going to be like last time where Obama was only like 2 going into the final day, and then he ended up pulling it by about 4. Right. I would spot Clinton an extra 2, honestly.
Yeah. No, that's fine. All right. So we're going to say that, it's going to be 290, somewhere around there. We're going to predict. Again, if we're wrong, I'm sure Trump will find this podcast and we'll be the first ones getting deported. So that's fine. I mean, I've been packing my bags already. Honestly, my parents have told me it's actually not so bad in Russia from what I've seen. I mean, Putin is a good guy according to Trump. So I think we'll be all right. And India, I'm sure Russia and India is good friends, so I'm sure we're not going to have any problems with seeing each other often. Yeah.
I'm not too good.
So the ballot initiatives, because we need to make sure we finish so the viewers don't fall asleep. The ballot initiatives, big things happening right now. Obviously in Massachusetts, where I am, there's a couple of interesting ballot initiatives happening. Obviously the one that's on everybody's mind is marijuana. And there's also, of course, a ballot initiative on charter schools, expanding funding to them. That's a big contentious issue up here, and something that Bill de Blasio has been criticized for in New York City. And then there's yet another ballot initiative, which is actually something that I didn't really even realize was a big deal until I looked into it. But apparently there's an initiative around whether Massachusetts should be allowed to continue importing certain food products that have resulted kind of in abusive practices of animals, such as cage-free birds and pigs and things like that. And kind of the argument against that is the local Massachusetts farmers are arguing that, some of them don't necessarily meet those standards, even though the majority do. The other side of it is that they're arguing that the price of products, eggs, and other things like that is going to go up, and that's actually a big deal. And I didn't even really realize that was something that was on the ballot. That's interesting because I mean, there is a push towards cage-free, organic, but when it comes down to it, I mean, does it really impact consumers? And that's up for debate. And personally, I've kind of seen. I kind of have my opinion on it. I certainly think that 1 cent, raising the price 1 cent per egg, in a carton is not going to make or break a family. But when it comes down to it, I mean, it could be a concern for people that are used to buying non-cage-free animal products. But obviously, the one that we probably wanted to discuss for today at least, is the marijuana one.
Let me point out something really important here.
Yeah.
Okay, so I actually have voted early, so I actually saw I didn't really understand this initiative that was for my county. It was I don't know, it said something random on there, and South Carolina is really bad at explaining ballot initiatives, so I had no idea what was really going on. And I consider myself pretty knowledgeable, but I didn't even know that this initiative was out there.
What was the initiative?
I think one of them was to raise taxes for the fire department in Westview, which is near where I live. And then I think there was another one on alcohol sales of some sort, which I'm cool with that. So it was very one of them was pretty clear, and the other one was really confusing. It's what we need to do as voters is we definitely need to make sure that we know what the ballot initiatives are, and we're very educated on why we should vote yes or no. Because sometimes it's super, super confusing. That cage-free thing. I mean, honestly, when I listened to it at first, I was like, okay, what exactly is he talking about? I don't really know. I mean, I think a lot of voters sometimes don't realize really, really important. I mean, ballot initiatives a lot of times have led, towards issues ending the war of drugs, et cetera, which we'll get into. So really it does matter a lot, and if you don't understand what you're reading, end up making the wrong decision or be misled by some industry group out there that decides to do pursue something or not. So let's get into it.
Stay informed. And by the way, when it comes to, I mean, it's interesting because I've seen both ads for marijuana being juxtaposed next to each other. So the one obviously in favor of marijuana. Actually, I haven't even seen the ads for that because it's pretty clear, right? People are going to want to vote for marijuana, Massachusetts at least. But the ad against it is you have this family, this mother and the daughter running up to the store, and there's all these candies, and it turns out these candies are actually all made out of weed, and the daughter gets really excited about seeing all these really funny candies. Excuse me. I need to plug in my computer. Pardon me. This is a commercial break for the podcast. I don't know what happened here, but I'm about to lose power. So give me 1 second here. All right. We're good. We're back on the air. Thanks for tuning into the commercial break. That was sponsored by the Nashville Predators team. So when it comes to the commercial, so the daughter runs up with the mother to the store, and there's all these candies that are made out of weed. And then, of course, the worst nightmare comes true for the mother. She sees her 13-year-old son walk out of the cannabis store. And she's like, Kevin? He's like, Mom? And they're like, do you want, the amount of the cannabis stores to outnumber McDonald's and Burger King's? This is going to be the reality. And the truth of the matter is, I mean, it is interesting to see how, you would think that even in a liberal state like Massachusetts, you wouldn't even see that kind of ad, but I mean, it is kind of a powerful ad. If you look at the parents of that might be coming out to vote for this initiative, they're going to be saying, they're not even thinking about the war on drugs. They're thinking about, do I want, David, baby David, baby Hirak, who are in their, youth, 13, 14 years old? Do they want them running around and having all this weed around them, and there's really no restrictions on kind of what they're able to get and how they're getting it? So that's a really interesting argument that I've heard. Really interesting.
I mean,
really interesting approach.
I mean, it's just misleading in general. I mean, as far as I understand, most of these like laws, they only allow you to purchase like anything if you're 21. So that totally throws that out the window. And
but I mean, the point is that you're exposed to it. It's like an adult video store.
It's basically like a modern take on Reefer Madness, which was like kind of this movie that came out during the 30s that encouraged people to encourage the country to pursue this, in my opinion, misguided war on drugs and misguided war against marijuana. So I think that honestly, I believe the initiative will pass. I think it will also pass in Florida,
California.
Which, by the way, requires 60% to pass. So I think it'll pass easily this year. I think
that's going to be after if all the states pass, it's going to be 1/5 of the country is going to have legalized marijuana, and Obama was bringing it up actually in an interview with Bill.
I think it might like quadruple the total like money, like the industry. I think something like I want to say $20 billion. Like right now it's like $5 or $6 billion, but it's going to like be huge. I mean, it's huge.
It's going to be huge. And you know what? And I think it's something that I think what was his name? So the president that Gary Johnson couldn't even remember his name when he was asked to name the world leader, Vicente Fox. I think that he said that you would be able to end the war on drugs to a large degree if you legalize marijuana in this country. And of course, you're not going to be able to prevent cocaine and crack and heroin and all that stuff. But I mean, marijuana is in such demand that I think you are going to have.
Well, I mean, I think like that's right, and then we have to move. I think we need to move more towards a society that decriminalizes and sort of like. I mean, I don't understand why we're criminalizing like possession of anything. It doesn't really make a lot of sense. So I think we should be moving more towards treating like actual addiction as sort of an illness as opposed to a crime. And I think as we sort of move towards that model of thinking, I think we will. Start to move towards ending like mass incarceration and move forward. And I kind of want to point out there's also initiatives that are based around the minimum wage, which I think has been kind of controversial. There's been states that are planning to raise it to like $12, I believe, in Colorado and other assorted amounts. And most of the time it passes. I think it passes like 95%, 95% of the time it'll pass. So I don't know. I mean, I think it kind of gets back to this point. Like, should or big industry groups have the right or ability to just fund whatever law they want to change, or should we leave it more up to our representatives? Like in South Carolina, we don't really have those kind of ballot initiatives. Usually they're kind of proposed by legislators, and we choose to approve them or not as voters. We want to change the Constitution or something.
Well, I mean, let's be honest. I mean, Brexit is the core of that discussion right there. How can you have a referendum for something like that? I mean, if you can have a referendum for leaving the European Union, I think that there's no debate about the fact that I don't know what went into the ballot initiatives for some of these things and why they were considered as ballot initiatives versus something that the state legislature votes on. I think that when it comes to charter schools, it's one of those things where I think people are not really informed about charter schools either way. And I think,
can you go back and tell me, like, kind of, okay, so is the ballot initiative for charter schools or against charter schools?
It's for expanding funding to additional charter schools.
More funding for charter schools as opposed to less.
Yeah, okay. Or maintaining the same type. Yeah,
we're not here. I don't think we're here to like get into an argument over it. I have my opinions. I think I think what my opinions are generally about that. I think the point is like these initiatives are like super, super important. Like they're gonna change like sort of like how we do things as a country, and that's crazy. You're like, okay, it should really be more like I think everyone's been spending so much time during this election focusing on like Clinton versus Trump, Clinton versus Trump, Clinton versus Trump, emails, Clinton versus Trump. But like actually really these initiatives are really where it's at in terms of legislation, because legislation is not really being passed by Congress these days. I mean, they're barely doing anything. State legislators a lot of times are slow to move. So these ballot initiatives allow like citizens to like kind of push things forward much more quickly. Progressive change or any sort of change, or you want to even push back.
As long as I think the citizens are going to be marijuana is a really simple one. Doesn't require a lot of brain power. First of all, doesn't require. I mean, I'm assuming people who are going to be voting for marijuana are probably going to be high when they go to vote in the first place, so that's going to be good. And I know that there's a lot of people who are.
Listen, if that gets people out to vote and turn out, no problem with it.
Just make sure you don't accidentally circle the circle next to the word Donald. That's the only thing.
The worst thing they're going to do is want to get something to eat, get some munchies afterward.
Just need to make sure they fill out the ballot correctly, man. That's all we care about, right? Just make sure if you're high, that's cool. That's it. And by the way, that's an important point. I mean, I think there's a lot of people who actually benefit from marijuana medically, and I think it does help people with certain anxieties, and that's why I think should not be considered a hard drug when it comes down. I may differ with you on the opinion about things like. Quick,
let's quick hit here. Do you think that? I mean, do you think that that the DEA or whatever should take it off the schedule?
Well, they would have to. I mean, if it becomes legal in 50 states, it would have to be.
That's obvious. What's hilarious is it could potentially be legal in 50 states, and still Congress may not pass a law, may not be able to pass a law, legalizing it across the country. I am pretty sure that would happen before that. I mean,
look, you have it's kind of like what's happening in Cuba right now. It's a different situation, but it's the same deal. It's like people are going to Cuba right now. Nobody's even getting penalized for going there for non-sanctioned activities per the federal government, and Congress is still going to sit there and not vote on it for another God knows how many years. It's the same exact thing. I mean, I think in principle, this is probably the best way to get around it, and hopefully, one day, the DEA will drop it from the schedule. And I think, there's other concerns. Opioid overuse is also a big issue. Yeah. Opioids are legal. They're pharma companies, OxyContin and stuff like that. It's a big issue, and I think that's definitely something.
I mean, you've heard there's been a lot of pharmaceutical companies that have spent a lot of money lobbying against marijuana legalization.
Well, I wonder why. Well, if I can give you a nice little medication.
I don't really know much about this, but I would assume it could potentially hurt their revenue sources just a little bit.
I mean,
maybe. I don't know.
Maybe, right? I mean, I think when it comes down to it, there's a lot of that's a separate discussion. Yeah, but I think it's really interesting what's happening. I think, I think our viewers have a good idea of the kinds of stuff to consider ahead of November 8th, and we're going to put this up on Monday, November 7th. So everybody will have an opportunity to see exactly what are the issues. And I think the most important thing that we're trying to say is get educated. And when it comes down to it, it's not just the president or even some of the Senate races. It comes down to everything, because the key issue that I think we're all realizing as Americans is, if we don't pay attention to what's happening at every other level besides president, you're going to end up with people like Chris Christie and Ted Cruz.
I think we should, Dave, before we close out, we really should talk a little bit about some of the Senate races. I know we just kind of glossed over it, but I think just real quick, I'll go through a little bit of what's going on. Nevada, it's really close right now between a guy named, I kid you not, his last name is Heck, and a Maestro, who's Latina. And that race is pretty close. I think it leans Democrat, in my opinion. That's just my honestly, super impartial assessment of it. Looking at Wisconsin, that race has gotten a lot closer between a rerun guy, Feingold, and Ron Johnson. I think that election, in my opinion, has become a toss-up. So we'll see what happens there. Looking at Illinois, it looks like Tammy Duckworth has it over Mark Kirk, because like it's a Democratic state. I just can't see how Kirk will be able to come back. He's kind of moderate, but I don't think he's been able to do enough there. Ohio is clearly going towards the incumbent sticking around there, so I don't think I would worry about that one too much. Looking at Pennsylvania, ooh, that's an interesting one, isn't it? I mean, you have Kate McGinty running against this guy named Pat Toomey, and it looks like McGinty has it, but it's really, really close. New Hampshire, as you've seen, you have Hassan running against, who's the governor, popular governor right now, running against Ayotte, I guess is how you pronounce your name. I think that one goes towards Hassan, but it's really, really close. So what the whole point of this sort of going through all of this and sort of discussing is like these races are close. Basically, the Senate will determine like what kind of judicial nominees are confirmed, because remember, like a lot of these nominees are going to end up being confirmed through the Senate. And right now you have this guy named Garland who's being held up right now by Republicans who wanted to wait till after the election to confirm anybody. So,
cough, John McCain. Cough.
Right. And so, well, I mean, I'm not here to blame anybody here. I'm just saying that.
No, but John McCain went out and said, we're not going to confirm anybody proposed by Hillary Clinton if she wins. I mean, and it's actually John McCain was respected by a lot of Democrats, across party lines as kind of the more reasonable Republican, even though he was a steadfast conservative. But it seems like he is just the same of a. I mean, I hate to use this word, but he's like a political prostitute, just like a lot of the other ones. Like when it comes down to it, I
just want to focus really quick on what would happen. I mean, if let's say that the Democrats end up taking back the Senate, they can change the rules to basically say, look, we only need 51 votes to confirm Supreme Court justices, other justices, etc. So you could end up with an environment where there's, say, 51 Democrats, and they could just literally confirm liberal justices to all the circuit courts and confirm all liberal justices to the Supreme Court. So really, this could end up super backfiring on Republicans.
But this is wrong that it comes down to this, though. That's what I'm trying to say.
It's very partisan. Right. I think, we need to just – and that's the reality situation today. Why not just be as partisan as possible? If that's how everyone's acting, I mean, I think it's been kind of this like weird kabuki where people have said, oh, well, these are impartial justices. Not so much. If you look at how the law works, there are liberal interpretations of the Constitution and there are more originalist views of the Constitution. So that's just generally how it works. So, as my professor explained the other day in my legislative process class, the process has always been political. Yeah. So taking politics out of it is kind of ludicrous. So really, the end game, the end product of kind of these years of like increasing partisanship, realizing that we're having this partisanship increasingly injected into the judicial nomination process. So the whole point at the end of the day, to summarize all of it, is that the Senate is really going to matter a great deal. So definitely make sure you get out there and vote on, if you haven't voted early, absentee, et cetera already, make sure you get out there, stand in the long lines, and get out there and vote, because really, this is really going to matter.
Yeah, I mean, and that's Hirak's impassioned way of saying it, because, we're both tired. It's both, it's late in South Carolina, it's late in Massachusetts, but we are saying absolutely. I mean, most of our Facebook friends, I'm sure they've already voted or are going to vote, so this is not even necessarily the audience. But I think that people should be reminded, though, that when they're going to vote, please look into some of the other issues outside of just, Trump versus Hillary, because it comes down to more than that. Especially, we want to get the right people into Congress, and the best way to do that is to be aware, from top to bottom, including your mayor, because it all rolls up at the end of the day. So thanks for tuning in. We'll be back. We will be back, and we will be back definitely when Hirak comes up here to Boston. We'll do a podcast live from this amazing living room with this North Korean poster in the back. And we're also going to be talking about some other interesting issues that we haven't necessarily talked about, including
the Cubs winning the World Series.
We could talk about Cubs winning the World Series. We can talk about, the disappointment that the Cleveland fan base has now had, even though they've already experienced one championship.
We can also address something really interesting that David's been involved with recently with getting involved with the National Women's Hockey League, and sort of talk about like kind of that and how like women are getting more involved in traditionally male sports. So I think that's going to be super interesting.
That's great. Yeah. We're not going to talk about David's dating life, but we will certainly talk about this. And of course, we'll be talking about the Nashville Predators as well, because I think that's something that, we're both passionate about it. I think we got to talk a little bit about what's happening with that team right now. They're not doing well, and that's unfortunate because they were projected to win the Stanley Cup this year, and now they're just totally botching all of that. So, with that being said, thanks for tuning in. It's David and Hirak. Man, this guy's too tired. And you will see us soon. Go vote November 8th. Make it happen. We'll be back in a few days. Take care, guys. Take care.